listening to the First City Lax podcast, brought to you every week from the Florida Panhandle. Coach John and Coach JP explore the best and worst of lacrosse on the Gulf Coast, so strap your helmets on and let's go.
All right, welcome back to First City Lacrosse. I am your host, Coach John, as always, with my co-host JP. I know he's your favorite, and today we have a very special guest, Coach Leigh from Pensacola Catholic High School. Leigh, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
I love this. All right.
Means a lot.
All right, Leigh, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, a little bit about your background, how long you've played lacrosse, or kind of what got you to where you are today. Take just a minute to talk about that. Let's go.
Okay, so in a nutshell, I married into the Navy, and so traveled around the world for a while with my husband Tom and with our kids. And Pensacola ended up being our final duty station where he made a decision to retire. And we decided to make Pensacola our home in 2016. So we moved here in 2012. And when I got here, I didn't think lacrosse was here. I had no idea. And honestly, I'd stepped away from the sport for about 20 years. And one day I happened to see some girls with lacrosse sticks. And so I started asking some questions and tried to learn a little bit about what was happening in the area. And personally, for me, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I played field hockey and lacrosse growing up, and I ultimately went off to play through part of college. And then I played after college. I lived in New York City, and I played for a club team in New York City for a couple of years, and then moved away and didn't really pick up a stick again until I decided to start coaching in Pensacola. So it was a huge break. And I also realized I had a huge learning curve to come back and learn as much as I could about the game in order to start coaching it again. So, but beyond that, with lacrosse, I played attack when I played. I have more of a defensive mind because from playing field hockey, but I have played attack, and when I got here, I looked for an opportunity to coach, and the only girls program was in Gulf Breeze. And that was started by Carly Costello. And so I jumped in with her and tried to start learning the game again to kind of bring myself up to speed. But at the time, I was only going to be coaching third graders, so it's not like I had to know a whole lot. But just being able to coach it correctly was really important to me.
Yeah. And how was the transition from? So you went from a player to basically a 20-year break and then coaching. What was that transition like to you said there was a steep learning curve. Like, what was the transition like going from player to coach after having not picked up a stick for, competitively at least for 20 years?
It was hard because even positions, the names of positions changed. When I started Googling everything, I mean, when I played attack, we lined up completely differently. We lined up from attack down to, the goalie, and the names of the positions were different. I played second and third home, and we don't say that today.
That's not even a thing anymore.
No, it's not a thing anymore. We didn't have boundary lines. We didn't wear goggles. We didn't wear.
Oh, they wear helmets now.
Yeah, it was different. So, I really took to Google, and I took to just finding whatever I could to learn. U.S. lacrosse was huge in helping to get myself up to speed and do the certifications. But like I said before, just coaching it correctly. I think you could be the best lacrosse player, but not necessarily be a great coach. I think I really focused on like the mechanics and how to trying to teach the sport correctly, because I think the fundamentals are like critical for anybody that's learning. So
Yeah.
Fundamentals.
Listen,
There's that word
we've done a
again.
ton of
All over the
these,
place.
and every coach has said basically the same thing. Like, there's such a big gap between, like, just because you're a good player doesn't mean you're a good coach. And that's one of the things we really want to stress is that, like, especially for the parents, and you know this from being, a girls coach, and girls coaches just seem to be a lot tougher to find.
Mhm.
As It's just like sometimes you just have to jump in as an adult and be like, hey, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn. And like you did, like you actually knew the game, but when you got back into it, you realized the positions are different. I had to go to Google, I had to go to US Lacrosse, I had to call, for help, whatever. And
Mhm.
people understand like how important, people like you understand how important that is, but sometimes, especially in this region, it feels like sometimes you're constantly fighting against whether it's like ego or just comfort. People are
Right.
just like, I want to play the big three. On the girls' side, it's like, I'm going to play soccer, volleyball,
Right.
and basketball,
Right.
or potentially softball,
Right.
and
When we first moved here, that's what my kids were doing. And
mhm,
it was the rec league in Perdido. And they needed coaches. And I didn't grow
yeah,
up playing soccer, but I knew, I was a parent and I figured, well, I played other sports.
hmm,
And it was more a matter of just jumping in because to me, it was what I needed to do as a parent.
yeah,
But I think a lot of parents tend to be apprehensive because one, they didn't play, and it's just a newer sport down
hmm,
here to learn. But I'm working on that, trying to build comfort levels.
yeah,
And if I can get parents to start coaching when they're little, it helps.
yeah. That's true. Well, I'll tell you right now, you're looking at two other coaches who didn't know anything about lacrosse until their
Yep.
kids said,
Yep.
hey, we want to learn and we want to play lacrosse. And both JP and I figured, like, hey, the best way to be involved and to learn about the sport is to just jump in and do it. So, and this is why we try to recruit coaches and even officials too. So,
Obsessed.
yeah,
That's what it is.
a little bit. Yeah. All right, Leigh, I got a couple of rapid fire questions for you if you're ready
Sure.
for them.
Okay.
Okay. First thing, are you reading any books? Or are you listening to any podcasts? Do you have any shows that you currently love that people need to know about that we don't?
So I am getting ready to start a book called Reach for the Summit by Pat Summit. She coached the Tennessee women's
Yep.
basketball team. I haven't started it yet, but I got recommended to me, so I was going to start that. So I can tell you later how that is. I like listening to John Gordon. I think he's more of a motivational. I've listened to The Power of Positive Leadership, Power of a Positive Team, and like he's another one called Energy Bus. I think culture is really important, and
Yeah.
so I really like listening to him because he can help pretty much anybody. And then I like Instagram as far as looking different at different Instagram pages. So there are a bunch of them that I like to look at and follow. And then I am part of it's a women's lacrosse coaching group. And I have shared it with with the girls lacrosse team, high school teams in the area. It was called I think it was called Women's Lax Drills. Now it's called Circle Up. And it's a forum that you can pay to be part of. And they provide drills, you can ask questions, you can get feedback. It's all coaches that are on this in this forum, and it's great because you have all different levels from youth to high school to college
Wow.
in this group. So that's been extremely helpful. In fact, they reached out to me because they were going to come here and they were going to do a coaching clinic.
Wow.
And
At Pensacola Catholic or somewhere else?
we were going to do it at I think we were going to do it at Gulf. No,
Gulf
we were going to
Breeze?
do it up at Ashton Brosnham. We're going to do it. We
Okay.
were going to do it up there. But they ran into some cost issues, so they're not coming right now. But I was really excited, and I reached out to all of the high school coaches and I said, "This is what's coming. Please tell me if you're interested. I think this is a great opportunity."
Mm-hmm.
What they ultimately wanted to do was they wanted to teach the coaches and then have the coaches coach the players.
Yes.
And that's what that's the intent, is to try to do something like that. But they, as I said, they ran into some conflicts and scheduling issues. So they're not coming right now, but it is something I would like to do to be able to help other coaches.
When we get done, send me that link so that I can post it and we can maybe get more involvement. The whole point of this podcast is to build engagement and to build interest and get people to understand, like, I mean, so the antithesis of the podcast is it's the Gulf Coast. We're big on football, we're big on baseball, we're big on soccer. We're not big on lacrosse. But you and I and JP, we all know we have some really, really good lacrosse players here. We have some amazing athletes here. And we have sent players between, this region, this Gulf Coast region, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, and even into Georgia. We have sent players D1, D2, D3, NAIA, MCLA, and there's talent everywhere you look. And I feel like, our players specifically don't get the recognition that they sometimes deserve. And the coaches need to understand how close they are. Like, we are right there. We are so close to being excellent. We're good, but we're not great. And
they deserve their own Channel 3 spot too for sports. Football and baseball. Yeah. I text him and I say, you ever notice, it's like basketball, soccer, but there's nothing about lacrosse. I mean, look at these games we go to. There's a ton of people. You know what I mean? Like, I think that needs to happen too. That'd be important to get it out there more.
Yeah. Well, and and we'll get into this a little bit later, but Leigh and Leigh was involved in that Catholic team last year that went to you went to regionals, I think, right? Yeah.
The last 2 years we've lost in the regional semifinal.
Yeah.
We just haven't been able to crack beating Episcopal.
Yeah, which is a solid team with a ton of tradition and a ton of heritage
and a ton of skill.
The pool they have to choose from is ridiculous. Like, we're looking at, so Pensacola itself is like 100,000 people, plus or minus 110, something like that. And then when you take into account the outskirts of the town, you maybe get another 100,000 people. When you talk about like schools in Orlando or Tampa or anywhere, or Jacksonville or Tallahassee or down into South Florida, you're talking about, they have a pool of potentially 1 million people they can pull from. So what it requires is that us as coaches need to be so disciplined in our approach to how we coach the game.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about last, I think 2 episodes ago, Leigh, was how
sportsmanship.
Well, not only sportsmanship, but like getting the fundamentals right. I mean, you mentioned fundamentals already, but it's like, gosh, I think a lot of people coach and teach the fundamentals, but the teams that excel, the teams that do really well, they get the fundamentals right when everything else is going wrong. They get the fundamentals right when it's a close game, and they just focus on the fundamentals, stick to the basics. They don't really try to do anything fancy.
Right. Well, and that's what keeps them up on top, is having that solid base. But they also have players that play a lot more during the year.
Yeah. Well, there's no substitute for experience. I mean, I think
no. And I highly doubt everybody around here hits the wall when they say they do, or, go out to the fields and shoot. You guys raise your hand, about half of them that raise their hand are probably lying or just telling a fib. So
right. Yeah. It's hard. And that's what I say to the girls all the time. If you want your teammates to trust you going into the game, they need to know that you're going to catch the ball when they throw it to you.
Wow. That is solid.
Yeah.
It's a trust thing, and I can't
basics and fundamentals.
And so I tell them, I'll say, like, if you don't put the effort into it, you can't be upset. If you're not getting into a game, if I can't rely on you to be able to do what we need you to do. So it's tough.
How have the girls responded to that sort of that coaching and that mentoring when you say things like that to them?
They respond, because when they don't get into a game, I'll ask, I have to ask them the question, like, are you, if you have to be able to catch the ball, you got to be able to pick up a ball, you have to be able to give a good pass. Like, and so those, and that's really those three things, catching, throwing, and picking up a ball, is just, they're so critical. And they do respond
Basics.
well. And I think some of them do go home and they do work on their skills, some of them more than others, and then some of them don't. And so, and look, we've got, some of them are more athletic than others. There's just, some people are just naturals, but those, I can tell when people are putting the effort in. It's easy. But I'm trying to build that culture of getting people to realize they have to put effort out. And for me, it also goes to just, if you're trying to, I'm a big believer in sports building confidence in kids. Yeah. And I think that if you put the effort in to try to get better at something, whatever it is, you're going to become more confident. Right. So, and whatever sport you're doing. And so I think that if I can encourage the girls to keep putting in the effort in, to watch themselves get better, whether it's running, even their conditioning, like that's a big thing too.
Especially right now as we're preparing for the spring season, like this is conditioning time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love seeing when they have results, because then they feel better about themselves. So I followed this Instagram page that talks. It's really a running Instagram page, but it has all these quotes like "running will make you smarter," like "running will do this," and I keep sharing them with them. Like, see, look, I'm not lying. Like, it really is good for you. But anyway,
I said to JR one day at practice, like, who is the sick, twisted individual that enjoys and likes to run? He's like, nobody. We're talking about running.
Except for cross country runners.
No. I haven't. No. Listen, Leigh, I have a theory. Here's my theory: is that nobody likes running. Nobody. They hate running less than what it is they're supposed to be doing.
True.
And so there's like, I'm just gonna go run because I hate it less. I hate it less than being overweight or out of shape. I hate it less than the chores I'm supposed to do. I hate it less than the work I'm supposed to do at the house. True. So I'm just gonna go run.
I'm gonna go run. Yeah.
Wow.
Good point.
Okay. All right. Leigh, can we talk about the upcoming high school season? Is that cool?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
What are you most excited about? I know, you're coming off a season where I think, so you are the new head coach at Pensacola Catholic, but you've been involved in that program for a while.
Yes, I helped start the program with my friend Jen Buer. She works at Catholic, and her daughter was playing, so I helped her start the program, and stayed with the program for the first couple of years, and then I kind of stepped away a little bit because of running the youth program, and it was just kind of getting to be a little bit too much. So I then when my daughter Julia became a freshman, I jumped back in, and I've been with the program since, and now she's a senior. So back to your question, I'm very excited about the season. We have a great group of seniors who I coached back when they played for me in the youth program. And they're a great group of girls. They're great role models academically and athletically, and they're just great girls. So, and I'm excited about everybody else who is back this season.
Yeah. I think you've got the best thing about your program, and I can say this having watched your girls play, and I've coached some of your girls, I helped some of them get started. And I'll be honest, when they ask me, hey coach, previously when I was coaching girls, I'm like, hey coach, where should I play? I'm like, you should go find Coach Leigh. And that's the best coach in the area. That's not a lie. I would genuinely say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No. Well, I think it's true. I mean, I think you're a great coach.
There
I think
aren't
you're
many
great
to pick from, but thank you.
Okay. I mean, if you want to go there, sure.
No, thank you.
But
I agree. No, it's very kind.
It doesn't mean you're not as good as I think you are. You're still a great coach, Leigh. Like, come on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
but
it.
okay. So Yeah, one of the things I love most is being able to watch the players that started, with me personally.
Right.
And then when I send them over to you, I know
Right.
they're going to get better. That's the best part about it. And then I see them and they progress, and I won't name their names right now, but you know who they are. The girls that came from my program, and now you're coaching them.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they have stuck with it, that they have such a love and a passion for the sport, that this is something they've decided to commit their high school lives to.
Yeah.
And, that's, gosh, lacrosse is one of those things like, you look at any other varsity sport, there's a handful of sports that that really make a difference when we talk about like, hey, college acceptance type stuff. Most sports are like, football, the major sports that we all think of: football, baseball, basketball. Most of those players who play varsity in high school, there's a 2 to 3% chance they actually play in college. But you and I know that for lacrosse, and especially girls lacrosse, that number is, like, it's like 10 to 12%. It's much higher. Now, 10% is still low. Like, let's be honest. It's still low. But when you're talking like 5 times as much, 5 times as many players are playing as or any other sport, like, this is something that girls really should look at. Like, if you want to go to college, this is and I say this too because, like, lacrosse is not a complicated sport, but it is complex in a certain sense, because
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not complicated, right? The easiest way to explain it: there's 2 teams on the field, everybody's got a stick, there's one ball, put the ball in the goal. The number of Seriously, like, give the kids a bunch of Red Bull, and as soon as they're done, like, whoever's got the highest number of balls in the goal, that's the team that wins.
Yeah.
But so it's not really complicated, but it's complex in the sense that it's like, offense can run any number of plays, defense needs to be ready for any of them. And you could change your offensive set. I mean, there's an infinite number of ways you could change your offensive set, and the defense has to adapt, and the goalie has to just be there, sit there and take it. Like, you have to be so flexible in your mindset with what you're seeing that it's really like it. So it's not complicated. Football has, you're going to sit there, you're going to run a play, and everybody has a job to do. The running back runs the ball. The quarterback is like the captain of the offense. And the linemen, their job is to block. And, the safeties on defense, their job is to make sure nobody gets past them. It's very I don't want to say it's one-dimensional, because I know it's not. But it's also just like, everybody has a role to play. But in lacrosse, you could change from offense to defense to, gosh, you could be a finisher, you could be a feeder, you could be a dodger, you could be the slot. I mean, there's so many different options, and at any point in time, your job can change. So you have to know everything.
Yep. I try to tell them.
Leigh, if you get new players, like, you're talking about recruiting younger girls that are interested in going to college. So how do you go about recruiting your players, new players? You know what I mean? What do you say to them? If they don't understand, like, where do you start?
Do you mean if I have players that are new, that are just starting the sport in high school? Or...
in high school, because a lot of people move here and they're in high school, and then, hey, they have lacrosse, let's give that a shot.
Right.
So, yeah, well,
right.
How do you do that?
So this year I have a few new players, and I'll make sure I'm answering this correctly. There are a few players that did not play before high school. Is that what you're asking me about?
Yeah.
So I have a few new ones. Like, I have a few sophomores that I have 2 sophomores that are coming out this year. Never picked up a stick before. One played basketball, one did swimming, but they're athletic and they are working. I told them, I'm like, you've got to work on here. We're back to that fundamentals.
Yeah, basics.
If you want to play, whatever you got, you have to have the basics down. But And for them, this is, you guys know, this is a friends thing with girls. Girls love to be with their friends.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's its own recruiting mechanism is, hey, come play with me. We get to spend every day after school. We might be sprinting our butts off, but we get to do it together, and I think that's helpful when you're trying to build to bring girls in. So I have some girls that, came from the youth program that I run, but then I have some new players that are just starting and they just want to learn a new sport. And I love that because I don't know about you guys. I mean, I grew up playing 3 sports. That's what we did.
Yeah.
And it was great. And it was great to move on to something else. And kids aren't able to do that as much anymore. So I love that there are girls that want to come out and try something new. It'll be really cool to see how they progress. I wish they had come down. I wish they came out their freshman year.
Yeah.
But
little off subject. I remember coaching U14 and like you hear the boys passing back and forth like, man, you guys are, the girls want to watch your mouth. You turn around and the girls hurt the boys' feelings. Tough crowd.
Yeah.
So last thing I want to get into is, with being a coach, where do you see the future of lacrosse for Northwest Florida? How do you want to pursue it in the future?
That's a
good question.
That's a huge question.
Solve this problem, Leigh.
Well, you're here, so obviously you're doing something.
So when I first started coaching, I was kind of looking around. We didn't know if we were staying here or not. We thought we were going to move on with the Navy. And then we made the decision to stay here. And I said, if we're going to stay here, like at the time, there was the program in Gulf Breeze. And then John's had the program that was trying to grow, in Perdido. And then I was going to be living in the heart of Pensacola. And I said, if we're going to stay here, I'm going to start a feeder program because
absolutely.
If all the high schools were starting teams. And so after a year of coaching at Catholic, and I had 2 people that had picked up a stick before, team.
Wow.
And they had played with Carly in this Lax Chicks program. And so they were good players, but nobody else knew how to play. And my kids were young, at the time. So I thought if I'm going to do this, I'm going to start a feeder program. So we did Gulf Breeze Rec for 2 years. And then when we decided we were staying here, I said, okay, I'm going to start this. So I started the program with Mark Hollis. Mark grew up playing lacrosse in Long Island, started programs in Tennessee, coached in Jacksonville, had way more coaching experience. He's also older, so that's why too. But anyway, and so we said we would start this program, and it's, and as John knows, it was like, it took a while to get people to trust it and get interested and like it. And I finally started seeing the results of my efforts. So I started in 2018 was the first year I run Five Flags Lacrosse, and 2018 was the first season for Five Flags Lacrosse. And it wasn't until like 2020 that I had my first, 2021.
2020 was COVID. So the whole thing was like shut down. Like we were very minimal that year.
So 2021, I had a few of my players that I coached in nights for like maybe 8th grade or 7th grade, and then they moved on. And then I got a few more, and then a few more. And then when my daughter's class came in, we had 10 girls that had played lacrosse before that were freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome. And I thought, okay, this is going to help. And then when the next class came in, so I was at a point where I'm at a point now where almost all of the girls that are on our team played youth lacrosse. Now,
that's
whether
good.
they played
that's
Perdido, whether they played Gulf Breeze, whether they played Five Flags Lacrosse, most of them have played. Only a few haven't. And so having that youth program was huge in being able to help them learn the game earlier. Now, as far as the future, I just think that in order for us to grow, like it was frustrating for me to see John not there. It's very frustrating that there isn't a huge program on the west side of Pensacola. Like that hurt not having that. But then, I look at it and see that, like, look at Navarre. They have one youth program for that whole area. So I don't know if we had too many youth programs and maybe we only needed to have one. I don't know. But a lot of it, again, is just the not having the experience of people that played the game. So people are uncomfortable wanting to learn it. You guys are great examples of jumping into the sport. And every single coach I've met that never played the game and has jumped into it are great coaches. Like, they just, because they were sponges and you wanted to learn so much. And so I'm definitely a believer in, you can learn this sport and you can coach the sport. It's just a matter of finding the people that want to do it. So going back to our youth program, one big thing for me right now is wanting to find parents that want to start coaching at a younger age so that they can grow with the sport.
You answered my, I was going to ask
really
a question about that, about parents, because that's usually
what do you tell them? Yeah, what do you tell them? Yeah, what do you tell them? I mean, we have to get them involved. There's no, without adult supervision, unfortunately, there's no team. We have to have a coach, even if it's like, I swear, like pulling the librarian out of the library and sit at practice for 2 hours. Like, how do we get those adults in so the kids can play? Because the kids want to play. We know the kids want to play.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like you say baseball or football, and parents are like, oh, yeah, you say lacrosse, they're like, what? So, we need to spread it to them too. Like, they're like, what?
It's hard. Yeah, and that's why, like I said, starting young is helpful. I mean, I try to get some of my high school players to help with the younger teams, but ultimately I do like having a parent involved with every team. And because that, to me, that's the stability of your program. That's your future, because parents aren't going anywhere. If I bring in, I try to seek out anybody that's, military that's in the area that has played lacrosse before to help. And that's been amazing as well. But I know they're leaving, or I know they might have conflicts, and that's their priority. And I'm so thankful when that help has saved me with being able to have, like I said, high school players or some flight students that have come out.
Yeah.
But the future is I really need parents. We need parents.
There's no substitute for it.
Mm-mm.
No. And I'm offering, I want to teach them. I mean, I'd love to teach them, just to build confidence in them and coming out and helping their kids play. Because like I said, like once they start little, then you get more comfortable growing with the program.
Mm-hmm. I have an idea, Leigh, that we'll talk about offline that I think could work when we end this episode to stay on,
okay,
and we can talk about it, because I think you're exactly right. And I've said the same thing, and JP knows this. JP is an example of a parent who didn't know anything about the sport and got involved and decided like once you get involved in we can look around the league and the division for high school and look at all the different coaches and be like, that's a parent that got involved. That's a parent that got involved. That's a parent that got involved. I mean, it really isn't hard to find. It's just a matter of like, how much are you willing to give? Because it is a sacrifice. Like, there's no way the school district or anybody is going to pay you enough to make it worth your while. It has to be a passion. It has to be.
Right.
Okay. We're almost out of time, but I have more questions for you.
Okay.
I want to ask you two things. One, well, let's just do the first one first. If you could go back in time, if you could, this is my favorite question to ask, so please don't be mad at me. But if you could go back in time and tell your first year player self something, or your first year coach something, what would it be?
I would say with coaching, definitely just watching more lacrosse. I do watch a lot of lacrosse because I watched I watched my kids play, my daughters play. I'm a visual person. I like looking at the mechanics of drills and some film and so forth. So I spend a lot of time doing that. But I also think, like I said, I think it's really important watching film and breaking that down more. I think in the beginning, what's hard in the beginning with when I first started we weren't at that point. We were learning how to catch a ball. You know, it wasn't really high tech lacrosse. So, and I really wanted to stay focused on fundamentals at that point. I think now that I'm coaching a higher level of player, I want to make sure that I'm challenging them and helping them to get to that next level. But I still think fundamentals is just so important.
To all you guys are listening, it's fundamentals. Like, how many freaking times have we said fundamentals in this episode? Just like every other episode, man. Fundamentals, basics, hit the wall.
Yep. When we were talking to Coach Kevin out of Washington, one of the things we really hit on was like, you know, the teams that do really well, they execute the fundamentals correctly, even when things get weird. You know, they just
that's what we said.
Yeah, that's really the name of the game. Just do the fundamentals right. And if you're really, really good at them, it's going to be like muscle memory. Okay, last question, and then we'll wrap up here, Leigh. What's your future look? What's your season look like? What's your lacrosse future look like for Pensacola and beyond that? And also, we're gonna get your kids on. I really want to get Drew and Julia on. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're both so talented. I love watching both of them play.
Thanks.
They're so much fun.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm hopeful about our season ahead. I don't like to think too far ahead, but I do think we should have a good season. I'm excited to coach Julia for senior season and her crew of the other seniors. Like I said, they're great girls. We just have a good mix of girls. It's a good mix of girls. And so I'm looking forward. I'm really hoping we can make it to postseason again. And if we can take it a step further, great. I want them to go out there and have some fun. And like I said, I don't have a lot of girls right now that want to play in college, but I love what this game gives to them. And I love the fun that they have. I love the confidence it brings to them. I'm really big on that. I think it helps them so much for their future. So no matter what they do outside of high school. But and then for my youth program, I mean, let's talk about that a teeny bit. but we're just constantly trying to build it. Like I said, looking, to get coaches and wanting to grow it because it's the future of all of our high schools. Let's face it. I mean, if we want the high school teams to get better, we've got to grow the youth program.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Leigh, real quick, tell everybody how they can find you, whether it's Loser. Are you still there?
I'm still there.
Tell everybody how they can find you, whether it's through Pensacola Catholic or Nice Lacrosse. We want to make sure that we send people your way who are genuinely interested in joining your program and getting your feedback. So how do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram. I mean, personally, it's like Frog Fam, I think. And people can, if you want to email me, it's leighfrosch@gmail.com. It's LEIGHFROSCH@gmail.com. The website for the youth program is fiveflagslacrosse.com. It's a youth program for kindergarten to 8th grade. And then you can always reach out to me on the Pensacola CHS website for high school lacrosse.
Awesome. We will post your email if that's okay, and we'll post the links in the comments section when we go live on this podcast.
Okay.
So it'll be on YouTube, it'll be on Spotify, and we'll drop some links on the Facebook page as well. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think you're running a great program. I think you do a great job. I am proud to call myself a friend and a member of someone in your circle. So that's great. JP, you got anything else for Coach Leigh?
Fundamentals. That's for everybody. We've said it so many times.
That's what he's stuck on. I love it.
I love what you guys are doing. I think it's really cool. And John, you've always given so much to this game in this area. So I appreciate everything that you do.
Well, this game has given so much to me. Like I'm telling you, I've said this before, but this game brought my family together, and there is absolutely no substitute for that. So
that's amazing. I love that.
The very least I can do is to give just a little bit back. And if I can't, if I'm not going to be coaching, or if I'm not going to be reffing, or if my future involves only traveling to see my boys play now that they're in college, the least I can do is to make sure that our future is secure for the next round of players. And I hope that this podcast and, people like you and people like GP can bring that to everybody's, to the future. So that's what I hope for. I appreciate you both, you guys. All right. Anything else? Any parting shots for either of you guys?
No, JP, thanks for all you do as well.
Oh, thank you. It was great having you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Good luck with it. Happy to help grow the game, right?
Exactly. That's why we're doing it.
That's what we're here for.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Leigh. Everybody, thanks for listening. We're grateful you're here. You can always find us. We're going to post all the links in the comments, but you can find us at First City Lax, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, any of those, or you can email us directly, John, Jon, at firstcitylax.com and JP at firstcitylax.com. We will answer. That I can promise you. All right. See y'all later. Be a good human. Get your reps in. Bye-bye.
See ya.
If you like what you hear, drop us a like and follow wherever you downloaded this podcast from, and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at First City Lax. Check back every week for more content. Thank you for being a part of the First City Lacrosse podcast.